Hey guys, just a quick note before we begin that the show may contain spoilers and adult language, but that's just because we know how to have a good time. Stick around, you'll be glad you did.
You are here for me to enlighten you.
You ever act like this again, you're barred for life.
It's just vile and base.
It's kind of embarrassing.
If you know your lines, then you can forget them.
Oh, I get it. It's very clever.
Hello, peoples, and welcome to Esoterica Cinema, the podcast where we take films from the cinematic multiverse and discuss the hell out of them. I am the illustrious Jason Peters, and with me, as always, is the man who once found himself taken hostage by an army of clowns in a downtown bank, Mr. Ryan Siebold!
What's up, Jason? How's it going, buddy?
It's going pretty good, man. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, anytime I get to come here and talk movies with you, it is a good day, sir. So, but I mean, first, we have got ourselves a little something to talk about here, Ryan, with this whole clown hostage situation, man. Why don't you give us a little something?
You know, it really wasn't a clown, it wasn't a hostage situation. It was for a film. I was an extra.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was like a little off Hollywood film by Martin Scorsese's brother, who actually is a clown, and he was making Jim,
right? Jim Scorsese. We all know Jim. Yes, he's a famous clown. Go on.
Well, he goes by Jim Scorsese, but it's like, you know, with little squeaky horns, you know. He doesn't really pronounce the last part of his name. He just uses the I can't do it.
No, but okay, we all know what you're talking about. Okay, so yes. So
right,
you and Jim Score and Honk Sound are in a bank.
Yes.
Go on. But you're shooting a movie. Go on.
We're shooting a movie? Yeah. It it was off the Joe Pesci thing, you know. Is that what you think of funny like a clown? And then, you know, yes, actually I do. And then the camera turns around and Joe Pesci actually is a clown. And so you know, there were scenes like that. It was fun. It was a good time.
Wow, that's some sort of misunderstanding. Because, like I said, I thought it was an actual hostage situation. Didn't know the whole thing was made up.
No.
Well, and because here's the thing, Ryan, is it was funny because I was actually down in a cafe and I was talking to someone else who was there the day. He was one of the people that was also taken hostage. He had no idea it was a movie. We talked about it before I brought him in. As far as he was concerned, it was a whole real life scenario. Please welcome, I brought him here today, Eddie the Axe.
I just got to tell you that this whole experience was very traumatic for me. I know it's funny for you guys. Look, enough, and no pun intended, clowning around here, folks. But the fact that you shot this in an actual bank and you did not tell us that there was a movie going on, sir, that was very inappropriate.
Seriously, that is very controversial. Yeah, no, I mean,
well,
because there's one thing about, you know, like I've heard about it, this whole sort of like cinema nouveau filmmaking style that they're talking about, right? Where it's like there's only a couple people. We saw it in Bowfinger, actually. It was introduced in that film, and it's kind of since taken off. So I guess this Joe or Jim Scorsese was kind of one of the pioneers of that.
Yeah, this was hyperrealism. You know, we were kind of going.
Not for you. It wasn't hyperrealism. Going along with, for you, it was a fucking paycheck. Did you get paid scale? But did you get paid?
Dude, there are people that are traumatized, bro. These people
traumatized
were traumatized
by clowns,
and you guys just fucked with them. That is so not cool.
I mean, anything for a buck, right? It's Hollywood.
Dude, the movie didn't even get released.
We
didn't
no
even see the
movie.
movie. You've got people who are like literally have to schedule weekly psychiatric appointments to deal with the trauma. It didn't even come out. What was it worth?
It was on Quibi. Calm down. It was fine.
It was a great 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, I handed over $10,000 to one of your people over there. I forgot what his name was, but he took the bag of money. We haven't seen that bag. I got fired.
We called that funny money.
This man lost his job because of you,
I lost
Ryan.
my job, Ryan.
What do you have to say about that?
I don't.
Ironically, I've had to take up a job as a clown. And you know what? And I've been performing weddings, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs. Birthday parties, I hate it. Every day is torture. Every day.
Well, welcome to my life as the co-host of this podcast, sir.
Fantastic. Well, hey, if you're uncomfortable with the last 9 minutes, Ryan, 8 minutes, however long it's been, let me tell you, we have got a lot longer to go before we get into this week's film. Eddie,
yes,
why
sir.
don't you go ahead and give people a little bit of a description about the Bloody Bits horror program that you run?
The Bloody Bits Horror Show is a once-a-week podcast that is hosted by me, your host, Eddie, the Axe Jefferson. I am joined, of course, as always, by the co-host with the co-most, Tim Yobo and Candace. So what we do is we talk about horror movies. Sometimes it's funny. Like last week, we talked about the movie Butt Boy, which is about it's actually a very interesting movie. It's film noir-esque, more neo-noir police procedural about a serial killer who stuffs people up his ass.
Oh, wow.
The week before that was I Spit on Your Grave. So
Nice.
We really kind of run the gamut, and you can always check that out at bloodybits.com.
Excellent. Yeah, and you guys are on all the streaming platforms. And great time. They've actually, interestingly enough, we've actually done a couple of the same films. It's funny because Ryan and I never really intended for this season to be so horror and sci-fi filled, but we draw our films randomly, and we've just had a lot of those episodes. So like, I know one of the earlier guys you did, the earlier episodes you guys did was Videodrome. We did that in season 1.
Oh.
Yeah, and
God,
then
that's
we
one
started.
of my favorites.
we loved it, man. It's so good. And then we actually started off season 2 with a 1.5 hour Dead Alive review, which means that you got us beat by a whole 90 minutes and a whole other part.
Fair warning about my podcast. We tend to run a little bit long.
Well, you've come to the right place, sir. If people are listening to this right now, it's because they're used to people droning on for way too long about films. So I think it's a good fit.
You might say it's a perfect fit.
Ooh, a perfect fit for Perfect Blue, which is a perfect transition. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and give this week's film?
This week's film is from 1997 from the great director Satoshi Kon. This is Perfect Blue. IMDb describes this as a pop singer gives up her career to become an actress, but she slowly goes insane when she starts being stalked by an obsessed fan and what seems to be a ghost from her past. Jason, what did you think about this movie?
Ryan, as always, I am going to be quite happy to tell you right after we listen to this trailer for Perfect Blue.
Excuse me, who are you? Excuse me, who are you?
Mima was a pop star.
This is Mima's last performance with Cham.
Who desired to become an actress.
I really hope that I can entertain you just the same as an actress.
But sometimes aspirations can be deadly.
I'm always watching Mima's room.
In the world of make-believe,
This is when Mima proves herself.
the price of fame
Don't worry, Mima, it'll be all right.
may not be worth the cost of identity.
Where did this come from? How do they know so much?
Innocence is lost. Dreams become nightmares. And privacy no longer exists. Where everything you do can be seen by everyone. And those you trust are really those you should fear. Your life no longer belongs to you.
Excuse me, who are you?
Manga Entertainment presents Satoshi Kon's animated psychological thriller, Perfect Blue.
Excuse me, who are you? Excuse me, who are you?
All right, so let's go ahead and let's jump into it. I know where I think we should start. Ryan, where do you think is a good place for us to start?
At the beginning.
At the beginning. Now, When Perfect Blue starts, we open on rays of blue and white light that stream diagonally across the screen. There's a loud thundering sound that drones for a while before what are obvious allusions to Power Rangers appear on screen, shouting generic action cartoon catchphrases. For a moment, it feels like we may have started the wrong film, but it soon becomes clear that this is little more than a traditional red herring opening. Now, Eddie and Ryan, from here, I thought it was really interesting the way that they set up this film because, again, they're showing this Power Rangers thing going on. You think it might be that. Then we realize we're at this sort of fair because we see some kids run out of the performance. They run past some adults, some grown men that are looking at these magazines of these girls that end up being part of a pop trio called Cham. Now, before we even continue, okay, right? Like, I did think it was funny. I don't know if there's anything here, but I thought it was funny that it was a female group called Cham, C-H-A-M, exclamation point, all caps, which is strikingly similar to Wham, all caps, exclamation point, just with a W instead of a C. I have no idea if that's supposed to be some sort of weird, obscure reference to, like, they're the female Wham, but I did think that was kind of funny. Now, the other thing that I thought was hysterical is that they show they show Cham on stage. And again, they're these very sort of pretty, Korean, Japanese pop trio that we see, especially today. And like they pan across like the media. There's a bunch of like press reporters and people that are like watching in awe. And I don't know if you guys saw, there's exactly one guy who's just like so incredibly disinterested. He like is looking down into the left and like looks like he would rather be anywhere else while literally everyone else in the crowd is just super into it. I wanted to know that guy's story. I thought for some reason like he stood out so much I couldn't not watch that guy.
His friends drug him there.
Yeah, exactly. But we soon learn that the protagonist of our movie is a girl named Mima, which I kept saying Mima the entire time. It was very annoying. But we see her backstage.
Mima? Like grandma? Like
Grandma Mima. Like every single time I wrote it down, I said to myself Mima and then pictured like, a very overweight woman in a hammock, right? Like
shout out to all the Mimas out there.
God damn it. I lost another 5% of our listenership. I'm always doing that.
Right.
Well, just real quick while we're covering it, one thing I would love to point out is the beginning you're talking about, the Rangers attacking Powertron. That's clearly your go-go Power Ranger moment.
Totally.
That's got that very crisp and sharp 90s anime style. And when we cut away from this, what we're seeing is a very human version of animation. Mm-hmm. All of the people in the crowd, everybody that's not the J-pop band, look very, very dull. They look like just a regular ass bunch of people.
Sure.
Which for that time in 1997 anime, that was coming out of Japan, that was very uncharacteristic.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it actually does sort of set up a theme that we're going to see through the course of the film where, a lot of the animation style, specifically with reference to the way that the images are colored and the color schemes that are used, I think that, the film uses that to great effect to sort of differentiate fantasy from reality, where oftentimes the fantasy is really just big and candy colored and bright and vivid. And then almost, what we would see sort of influence Joker 20 years later, a lot of the sort of reality tends to have that sort of like neon soaked green, sickly, like you can almost see these like radiation particles in the air almost. And so, doing that right up front, like you're talking about, does establish a theme that we're going to see over the course of the film. Really strongly done. Now, speaking of themes that are going to be established in terms of visuals and otherwise, the next sequence, once again, sort of shows us it's where we start to get into a little bit of the sort of temporal manipulation that's going to take place over the course of this film. A lot of this film is you're not really certain what's real and what's not. And the way that that's done is actually really technically skillful. And we're going to get into exactly why that is. So with this sequence, for example, we're watching Mima and she's doing these very mundane tasks, right? She's riding the train, she's doing the grocery shopping, and then that's intercut with her at the aforementioned show, the fair, announcing her retirement, right? And we see the crowd very sort of shocked and disappointed. And we're also introduced to a couple characters that are going to play the role of antagonist, which is like these sort of rowdy teens. And then this guy that we're going to end up learning later on is called Me Mania, which that's some of a name. I did also love the fact that just like any good anime, it does this film actually kicks off the credit sequence with a traditional Japanese animation song, right? Just straight out of any anime you've seen since 1990. So,
yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot going on here within these sort of first sort of like 7 to 10 minutes, right? Now, Eddie, what I wanted to ask you is sort of in piggybacking off of what you said earlier. What were some of the other takeaways that you came away with from this initial sort of setup? And, how well do you think that set up what was going to come later?
I think that the setup was very interesting. So you say that she announces that she's breaking away from the band Chan, but she can't, right? Actually, one of her bandmates stops and says, hey, what she's trying to say is that she's outgrown us and she's going to metamorphosis outside of our band. And that's actually kind of the theme of the song that they sing. And as far as like the bad kids are throwing cans and shit, and this is clearly like we're finding out that they're like a B tier pop band. They're not like this isn't like your NSYNC or your Backstreet Boys. This is like your 98 Degrees. They're not up there just yet. And
they haven't even had like a song in like the top 100 yet or whatever.
No,
because they're gonna have that big moment earlier on later.
Yeah. No,
so they're still on the rise. They're young. They've got enough of a following, but yeah, to your point, they're not mega pop stars that are recognized walking down the street.
Right. So this really is like kind of a fork in the road for Mima, and she's wanting to go a different direction. And by the way, the creepy guy, he's like a security guard that's working there. But I love that one of the things in one of the scenes, one of the shots, is her on the stage, and he's holding his hand out with his palm flat as though he is holding Mima in the palm of his hand. Like she is a possession for him. And then, like you said, then we juxtapose that with her doing what a regular ass person does, riding the bus, shopping for groceries, picking out the right food for her fish. It's a really interesting and I think brilliant setup for what's about to happen.
Definitely.
Yeah, that palm of the hand scene almost kind of was reminiscent to me of like a music box almost, like something you'd wind up with a little ballerina that would spin inside a music box or something like that. Like the way he kind of just like opened his hand up and she was like just kind of dancing around within the palm. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and then there's a lot of visual references over the course of this film too. To like I'm thinking of that great shot at the end once the reveal happens when Rumi sees the lights, right? And again, because all of this is supposed to very much reflect the way that the characters see both, themselves, but really each other. I mean, I think everybody but Mima is really looking at Mima, and then Mima's obviously looking internally. I also didn't realize until just saying it out loud right now, like how close me-mania is to Mima. Yep. Mima, me-mania. It's like right there. Just recognized it right now. You'd think I would have noticed
nailed
earlier.
It. You found it.
But so from there we go back to the apartment, and she's alone, Mima that is, and everything's quiet. She's sort of taking down the Cham posters, and we see the first signs of trouble to come, right? So she gets this weird note about how there's this thing called Mima's room, and it's online, and she's talking to her mom, and then she ends up getting another call, and it's one of those like heavy breathing calls, right, where they don't really say anything, and then she clicks back, and then she gets a fax that just simply has the word traitor written on it over and over. So clearly there's some shit that's about to start brewing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Now, and one thing I love with this is that her room, it does not look like chill synthwave vibes room. Like it looks like it's a fucking room that's lived in. Just that kind of attention to detail is one of the hallmarks of this film.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, this movie is animated, but it very easily could not have been, especially with today's filmmaking technology. It wasn't. I mean, it uses the strengths of animation in terms of being able to play to some of those more surreal elements and, doing the hyper-real color schemes and some of the anime call-outs and whatnot. But, yeah, I mean, even down to the fact that in just a minute, we're going to get to where she gets, like, the Apple computer, There's a lot of a realistic detail to sort of make this world feel like It's lived in, and it's an actual, it's real life. So part of Mima's progression is that she's decided she's going to make that leap that so many pop stars decide they're going to make, right? Where they are going to become an actress. Which I never know why that's the ultimate goal, right? Like, I don't know that being a pop star is a notch below being an actress, right? Like, I don't know. Ariana Grande seems like she lives a finely charmed life.
I think nobody's ever happy with what they are, right? Because like you get a famous comedian, they want to be an actor. You get a famous actor, they want to be a comedian. You get a famous musician, they want to be an actor. Like,
that's true.
I have heard that too. They say rappers always want to play basketball, and basketball players always want to rap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they say the same thing. They say that musicians always want to be actors, and actors always want to be musicians. Which is why we hate Jared Leto, right? Because he got to be both and hugely successful at both. It's like, come on, dude. Pick one. Save the rest for spread the wealth here. Come on.
The only content profession in the whole entire universe? Podcast host.
Yeah,
we're perfectly content right where we're at. We know our spot. We stay in our lane. We know it's on.
Yeah, exactly. We set that bar low and we rise to it every single day.
At least we're consistent.
So it's the first day on set for Miss Mima, and she's on a TV cop drama called Double Bind. Now, she tells the manager, Rumi, the female manager, that is, because she has her manager and then her agent. And so we get Rumi, who herself used to be a pop star, and she basically tells her to ignore it. And back on set, Mima meets Eri, who is the lead actress, and she's kind of the one who like has it all, is widely admired. She's who Mima wants to be, right? Now, alongside this, we've got the male agent Tadakoro, I believe is how you say it. I'm sure we're gonna butcher these names like we do all of our foreign names, but we try real hard. He's basically trying to get her more lines because on this episode she only has like one line that she's practicing over and over that she finally gets to say, and when the agent Tadakoro opens the letter, it actually ends up being a letter bomb. Remember those kids? Yeah, back in the 90s, letter bombs were a thing. Was that Kaczynski? Was that the guy? Or was that the Oklahoma City bomber? I forget.
Ted Kaczynski's the Unabomber. So
he's the Unabomber.
Yeah,
I forget who the letter bomb guy is.
He blew up a building. It just reminded me of the whole anthrax scare that we had recently.
Yeah, and then there was the anthrax, yeah. Wow, look at that.
Fun times. Ladies and gentlemen, anthrax.
Anthrax and letter bombs. See, it wasn't always so good, guys. It's always sucked.
Good thing we've given up on the postal service. That is a terrible idea.
And after the letter bomb goes off, obviously he gets injured, and we see a small scrap of paper. It says, "Warning, next one real." So we're starting to get the sense that, okay, this chick might start to be a little bit targeted here. Ryan, one of the things I wanted to ask you, because I know you're a big animation guy especially, is kind of what you felt about the overall look and the overall animation style and the color and just all of the visuals of this one.
So I was pleasantly surprised to take a deep dive into this. I didn't know much about the director, Satoshi Kon. But so this guy came up with Katsushiro Otomo, who directed Akira, which is, I mean, the granddaddy of all, right? Like, that's the best. And
it's so good. It's still so good. You can watch it as many times as you want. It always holds up.
Katsushiro Otomo and Satoshi Kon came up together in the manga scene in the 80s, long before Akira was a thing, and they developed Akira together. They went on to work on movies like Ryujin Z and Memories, which I need to see both. This cat, Satoshi Kon, was actually given the Winsor McKay Award at the Annies, the Animation Awards. And just to kind of put that in perspective, previous winners are Mamoru Oshii, who did Ghost in the Shell, Walt Disney, Osamu Tezuka, who did Astro Boy.
Who was that? Walt Disney?
I know. I'm probably butchering these names. Well, we're trying, though, everybody. We're trying. So anyway, all that to say, this dude came from things, and he did stuff, and he was a badass. And this was on full display with Perfect Blue. Unfortunately, he didn't do a ton of stuff, but I need to go see Paprika. Which
we have on our list, by the way.
Paprika is amazing.
super
Is
stoked
it?
for it.
Dude,
Yeah,
I hope so.
So, I was really because I was instantly drawn in by what I was watching. Unfortunately, as much as I do love animation, I'm not as well versed in my anime and Japanimation as I would love to be. So I just never know where to start, right? Like it's it's really is a different world all its own. And so I'm really glad when this podcast gives me curveballs like this that I can, kind of dive into a little bit. So,
yeah, Eddie, are you much of an anime guy?
No, I hate anime. I hate anime. I hate animation. I hate Disney. Anime is one of those things, though. For me, it's like a sushi restaurant. Like you want somebody to check it out before you go there. You know what I mean? Like you want somebody that you trust to be like, listen. I know most of it's bad, okay? This one's all right. So go check it out. I promise you Perfect Blue's okay, Akira's okay. Hellsing is another one you should check out.
Yes.
That's a lot of fun.
Dude,
and
love
Trigun. Trigun is very good.
Good.
Have you checked out Death Note?
Yeah, you know what? I like Death Note up until
didn't do it for you?
I liked Death Note up until they decided we were going to work together and get in this big building together. And then I was like, yeah, I'm done. I like the cat and mouse. I like the two of them playing chess against each other. Once they join forces, fuck that. I'm done.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'm kind of in your vote. I think I like anime a little bit better than you guys do, but like not substantially. And my daughter loves anime, and specifically she loves manga. She's read like all the mangas that are out there, and she's seen a ton of the animes. And yeah, so for me, I think what it is there's people out there that just love that style of animation across all the different genres. But you do kind of forget too that it's animation has expanded a lot here in the U.S. And I feel that it's been that way for longer in Japan, to the point where it's like you can't just say, "Do you like animation?" anymore. Because animation doesn't just mean Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny, right? You have adult animation, you have children's animation, you have family animation, you have like outright just offensive animation, right? It's like there's all the different genres of non-animated films that you have are now represented by animation. It's crazy.
Totally. And like I used to go check out the Spike and Mike film festivals, which
totally.
You have to be ancient to remember that shit. But
I haven't thought about that in forever,
No Neck Joe
bro.
and all of that shit. And I'll digress again. I am obsessed with, to a degree of it being a problem, the work of Junji Ito.
Like, nice, dude. Very nice.
Like we covered the attempt at an Uzumaki movie, and
I've heard,
it's not great, but God bless it.
The live action one, right?
Yeah. I love everything Junji Ito does.
Tomi and Uzumaki hardcovers right now.
Okay, we'll have to.
But I didn't understand. Later. I think there was an animated Uzumaki they did.
It's coming out.
It's supposed to be better.
It is coming out, and it looks incredible. Adult Swim is going to be coming out with it, but they because of COVID and everything, they're like, look, we're going to hire twice as many people as we thought it was going to take initially, and it's going to take us twice as long. But this is fucking Junji Ito, so we're not going to mess with it. It's going to be perfect. So,
and he's kind of having his kind of moment in the sun right now too. You know, the last few years he's kind of blown up.
Fucking finally. Anyhow.
So, yes, but we digress. Coming back around here. Like I said, I did think that in terms of, the visual aesthetic, I don't know, and maybe I missed this, but did you guys notice the same thing? Like, to me, it looked like again, we sort of saw that Joker thing where reality and fantasy were sort of like shot differently and had different color schemes. Was that just me, or did you guys notice that too?
That is intentional. That is the point of the person who helmed this entire feature. Because I don't know how much research you did into it, but the original manga that this was based off of had nothing to do with that. There was no picture in a picture in this originally.
Really?
It was It was just about a B-tier pop idol who wanted to become an actor and an obsessed fan attacking her. That was it. There was no what we're going to see with blurring the lines of fantasy and reality.
Wow, that's crazy. And obviously, the manga, for those that don't read mangas, they're all in black and white. So the color scheme and a lot of those visuals would have to be introduced in the film. So that night, that's when we get the some of the weirder product placement that I've seen, where Rumi, her agent, buys her an Apple computer. And I just think it's hysterical that, Apple's like, oh, you have a sexually ambiguous psychological animation thriller? Yeah, absolutely. That is the Apple brand. That is who Apple wants to be. That is who we want to be associated with.
Apple was confused back then in the 90s.
Yeah, 97. Yeah, 97 was a weird time.
It was still trying to find itself. It was doing some weird things, went on some weird dates, got involved with the wrong people.
Right. Yeah, I mean, even just watching her, being introduced to the internet took me aback. It was a stark reminder of when this took place and when this came out. I was like, wait, what? How does she? Oh, that's right. Got it.
I thought the same thing too. Like, I was just picturing the producers like, okay, the internet scene's great, but there's just going to be a lot of people who don't know what this internet thing is. So can we have an explainer scene where you just sort of tell the audience what this internet thing is?
Yeah.
They're like, we got you, fam.
This predated Clippy. Yeah, all of that.
Yeah. Also, I did think it was funny because I thought that was the most the weirdest product placement since Canada Dry sponsored Videodrome. You remember that? For no other reason that they're like, you're Canadian, we're Canadian. Oh my God, we should be in each other's thing.
The most polite sponsorship of all time.
Can you put the Canada Dry in the stomach vagina vacuum? No. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was asking too much. I just thought maybe it could be like a little cooler that he could kind of keep Canada Dry in there, and it's like, oh man, all this body horror stuff's exhausting. You sure can go for Canada Dry, reach into his stomach and pull it out. But no, we don't need to do that.
When you've been shot by a finger gun cancer thing, reach for a cold Canada Dry.
Exactly. It's like, look, guys, it's a limited niche, but we are going to own that niche. Those 0.2% of Canadians are ours. But yeah, so after we get the little explainer course, that's where Mima starts to get an idea of what's going on in terms of the fact that she may have herself a stalker. And I do have a clip of that. Let's go ahead and listen real quick.
It was just terrible. I screwed up the choreography and forgot my lyrics. I feel so sorry for all my fans. This morning when I got off the train, left foot first, all the bad stuff started. I always make it a point that my right foot goes first into the train and into the bath. Somebody sure knows me. What's this? Today was my 21st birthday. Yukiko, Rei, and the staff at the agency held a party for me. It was terrific. Coming home, I went grocery shopping at the usual store. I bought myself mineral water and milk. I get the best water, and the milk just has to be cow brand. I have to allow myself at least that luxury. And of course I get the right brand of food for my precious fish, the kind they like. May 12th, I was impressed with Eri Ochiai's performance in Double Bind. She becomes another person when the camera is rolling. Where did this come from? How do they know so much?
Excuse me, who are you? Excuse me, who are you? Excuse me, who are you?
Now from there, we start the next morning. We see her back on set. The managers it's not on set, it's actually in the office. And the managers are arguing about basically Mima's future as an actress versus a pop star. And, Mima's on the train. Again, we're starting to see some of these sort of visual motifs pop up where she, in a quick sort of jump cut, sees Me-Mania's reflection in the window of the train that she's on. And that's where she gets to the office and learns that Cham has debuted in the top 100 at number 83. Mm-hmm. And they're obviously, very happy. She plays it off very well. Like, she's just happy for them. And that's when the male agent, Todoroki, comes with a indecent proposal of sorts and says, hey, I've been talking with a screenwriter and we have a way to get you more lines. It's also going to help you shed your good girl image. And that's that we want to film a rape scene in this cop drama with you being the girl who's assaulted.
And I'm so glad that every podcast I go into, it's just me talking about rape. But what's interesting about this is, like you're saying, Cham is on their way up and she is maybe feeling a little bit of regret. So that fork in the road is dividing a little bit further, right? Maybe she should have been with Cham again, maybe in her mind, in her subconscious. She's thinking like, fuck, I was a minute away from breaking that top 100. Meanwhile, I'm at the bottom barrel of making this B tier Japanese drama, and now you're telling me I have to go do a fucking rape scene.
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
And I think that we see that over the course of the film in a number of different respects where, and that's an excellent observation. She's sort of given these forks in the road, and, you know, as we can sometimes do when we stubbornly hold on to a dream or an idea, you know, there's these little opportunities where she can go back and she can reverse course, but to do so would be admitting failure, you know? And so instead she has to double down on it, you know? So now you know, if there was any hesitation about doing a scene of sexual assault, the reality of seeing the success of the people that she just walked away from, well, now she has to do that, right? Because she has to match what she sees as their success.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's also already setting up what is going to be a large theme of this film, which is that, you know, all of this that goes on ends up being a very extreme coping mechanism for a number of bad decisions that Mima made and that she put herself, situations that she put herself in. And, you know, the entire sort of crux of what this mystery hinges on is that, you know, all of this is essentially going to be in her head. And she's, you know, making up a large part of this to deal with the trauma of, you know, again, just some seriously bad decisions that she made for good reasons, the way that we always do, right? Like nobody's the villain in their own story, right?
That's definitely part of that. But I'm gonna float an alternate reading for you real quickly, and that is the world's idea and the male gaze on a woman and their ownership of her image. Like, what if she wants to do that? What if she's like, you know what? And we actually kind of reference it where they say, well, you know what? Jodie What's-Her-Face did this. Jodie Foster, clearly the accused, is what they're referencing. But what if, like, part of the problem, because we'll see that what happens is it threatens, like, it alienates her initial fan base, is the way that she is perceived. And it's also like half of it is the way that her fan base perceives her, and the other half of it is the way that the industry perceives her and how everybody can use her as a conduit or a utility.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess in thinking about that right now, the one thing that I would say, though, is I don't think for her it's a matter of taking agency of her body or anything, just because of the fact that afterwards, right, she does have that sort of breakdown scene where, you know, she gets back in the car after it happens and she's playing it cool. And then, you know, I forget what, but it's one of those like instances where something sort of small happens and then it begets this, you know, huge outpouring of emotions. We'll get to it in a second here, but yeah, you know, and I don't think that. I think to show that scene, you know, she even says as she's yelling there, like, "Of course I didn't want to do it," or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. I would.
That's fair. That's fair.
So from there, we do actually, you know, get the scene, and it's, you know, it's kind of I don't know if interesting is the right word. I don't know what the right word is, right? But the fact that this is first of all, it's animated, and second of all, it's simulated, even within the context of the story, does not lessen how uncomfortable it is. It's a very, very difficult scene to watch, and there's even, I think it's the fact that they very clearly reference, like, the actors that sort of know what they're doing, right? There's even, like, the guy who is doing the physical assaulting on Mima, and, like, in between takes, he, like, whispers into her ear and, like, says, like, "I'm so sorry for having to do this," right?
Well, yeah, because, like, one of the other things is that it's also, like, we've seen this very grounded anime for the last, like, let's say 20 minutes, and when we get to this scene, it is very hypersexualized. Like
Yeah.
the color palette completely shifts and changes. And finally we're seeing like, we've never seen Mima as being like busty or like very sexual. But in this scene, we do. And that's, of course, you know, part of the interpretation that's going on here. And like you're saying, though, it's so funny because we get to that point where he's like he's about to rip her clothes off of her, and they're like, cut. And he just holds. He doesn't move. And he's like hovering above her. He's like, I'm really sorry about this. And she's like, no, it's cool. It's cool. I know we're acting. It's cool. It's cool. But while this is going on, she's also seeing that creepy guard, her creepy fan that was stalking her.
And I think it's also one of these things, too, where like so often when we're in the middle of something, right, you don't have that time to stop and think about it. But Ryan, I believe you've referenced it before as the sobering trip to the bathroom, right? I guess that's kind of her brief moment, right? It's where you sort of stop and it's like, oh shit, like this is really like we're really doing this, you know? And so I think that we do also start to see a little bit of that emotion creep up on her for the first time because she's done such a good job of just acting like it doesn't bother her that we do start to see that one little crack there for a moment when she's allowed to feel it.
I've always really appreciated anime for being able to give us these grounded, real life experiences within the context of these hyper real, fantastical worlds that we're living in, right? Whether it be Akira, like we talked about, or Attack on Titan, or whatever, you know, like, and here in Perfect Blue is a good example, you know, like even her stalker, the way he's drawn and the way the art is portrayed and so forth, it's all, you know, his eye is kind of shifted almost like a sloth from the Goonies kind of way, a little bit, salivating from the mouth. Everything is very, hyper real and extreme and kind of pushed to its boundaries. But yet, here we are with her in this moment, and it's very real and very raw and very touching. And it kind of snaps us back out of that, and like you were talking about it. I mean, the whole picture kind of starts with that Voltron, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, you know, kind of fantastical thing. And so it's, we start there, and then slowly but surely we start to deteriorate out of the sham and out of the, the pop star thing. And by the time you get here, it's, we haven't even talked about the fact that this has inspired a couple of Aronofsky's films. And I thought that was fairly appropriate because I didn't realize how dark this was going to be when I watched it. I mean, I knew it was going to be like a bit of a thriller, you know, whodunit, murder mystery, whatever. But I didn't know it was going to be covering such dark topics like this. But, knowing going into this that this was an inspiration for a couple of Aronofsky's films, I should have known better. Because this was dark as fuck.
Yeah,
or at least it gets that way for a bit. Because after this, she goes and does the the nude photo shoot of sorts, which I kind of likened this to 97, 98, 99, I'm thinking Maxim magazine, I'm thinking Aguilera, I'm thinking Britney Spears, I'm thinking
you thought wrong, sir.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. I was just thinking, the sexualization of female pop stars around this era.
Oh, no, I'm just talking about her photo shoot. That I mean, if I had seen vulva in Maxim, sir, it would have been very different.
No, but I think what he's trying to say is that, this is of that time, and so it ends up being a sort of commentary of sorts on
a commentary on the sexualization of female pop stars coming out of their childhood, embracing their sexuality, but then having it go to an extreme and so forth. And also the dawn of the internet, and the exploitation that provided in a way that before you'd have to go down and get a magazine and bring it back to your house. And then all of a sudden, not much longer after this, it was also, right at your fingertips.
I mean, it's everything as old as new again, right? It's the 70s exploitation of those old skin magazines. Brought back, right? Like there were famous people that were in Playboy and Penthouse back in the day.
Sure.
And now this is the resurgence of that. And I would say today we are back at that point, right? A Kardashian's not a Kardashian unless you've seen her having sex. So here we are.
Well, even just the backlash that Billie Eilish has given the press and media for trying to sexualize her coming out of her teens, and the lengths that she's gone to cover herself and portray a certain level of modesty intentionally so, and she's spoken out about that, like, don't try to fucking sexualize me like I'm a kid, you fucking weirdos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
So,
I mean, it's weird too, because it's two sides of the same coin. It's like, you're trying to sexualize me, or you're trying to tell me not to be sexual. Like, just maybe leave me with my own autonomy,
Right.
Yeah, because and the thing is, I think that it's like, when we're talking about these types of, teen idols and stuff, like, these are developmental years, and so the difference between a 12-year-old girl and a 17-year-old girl is night and day. But as that 12-year-old girl gets closer and closer to 17, if they've found a way to be profitable off her 12-year-old image, they need to try to hold that as much as possible, and so I think what happens. Yeah, and so I think what happens is it only exacerbates the situation because they're being held back, right? It's like, what's the best way to get your teenager to act out, right? Like, just ban them from doing everything, tell them they can't go see anyone, right? And just watch them do everything. Whereas, if you give them a little bit of leeway in a responsible sort of way, you don't get those reactions. So I think it's one of these things where it's just these girls are being held back for so long and so long and so long that by the time they do that, it's like, they should have been starting down that road a few years ago. And so now they have to compensate and make up for a lot of ground in a short amount of time. And so that's why seemingly overnight these girls go from being, preteens to over-sexualized late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, I just thought this film did a pretty tremendous job of portraying the dance, or that fine line between any celebrity, really, or any pop star of any kind, taking possession of their own image and the way that's portrayed. And then the other side of that, which is the people trying to exploit that and take advantage of that and push them into something. And so, and then, everyone surrounding them in that dance. So I just thought it was really interesting. And so,
and where they take that and then, like, take what you're thinking here and then take the idea of the male gaze and see where they go with this, with the kills, is so interesting.
Yeah,
definitely.
True.
Yeah. So let's jump back to the narrative here. So after she does the initial rape scene, she returns home. Oh, it's the fish that are dying. She gets home and, like, all of her fish had immediately died, which, I guess we'd have to assume that, like, Mania or someone else, must have killed them or something. And then, she starts bawling.
What I assumed actually was that she was neglecting her regular life as a person, and that the fish were part of that.
That's actually much stronger. Yeah, I like that. That she sort of, she got so obsessed with her pursuit of, fame and acting and whatnot that she just literally completely forgot and starved her fish.
That was my read.
And then that's when she has that breakdown, because she realizes, like, oh shit, like I did this to the fish the same way that, like, I did this to myself. These are all the results of my actions and decision making.
Yeah, hence her having that while she's floating in water.
Yeah, and then we do start to see the reflection of herself that appears, that represents, her innocent version and the pop star, the Cham version, if you will, of her. And we see where she immediately actually... Yeah. Now we see where she actually chastises her. I do have a clip of that as well, real quick, that I want to play for our audience.
See? Didn't I tell you? You didn't believe me. You were better off as a pop idol. I was right, huh?
Hey, Mima, are you listening?
Stop all this nonsense! Please tell me who you are! Who, me? I am a pop idol.
And then, again, this is something that's being established that we're going to see start to come up over and over, where we see her talking to her old self and the person that she used to be. And in the next scene... So on top of that, now we've got these murders that are starting to happen, right? And in the next scene, we see this happen to the screenwriter. So the screenwriter arrives to work, he gets in an elevator, and by the time those elevator doors open back up, he will be stabbed to shit with his eyeballs gouged out and a bunch of blood going everywhere. We're still not exactly sure who the culprit is, but we're starting to maybe have some ideas. Maybe it's this Mania guy, who's to say, right? And from there... to what you guys brought up earlier, that's when she makes, yet another very bad decision that takes her yet further down that line, where she agrees to do a photo shoot with a photographer who is very much known for getting people to do nudes. And, any idea we might have thought that, she's not going to do that to herself or she's going to resist. Like, nope, she just plays into it, very quickly. And what's interesting is that the director chooses to contrast this by intercutting it with a Cham performance where it's just the two of them. And I believe, if I remember correctly too, they're also singing a song basically about choosing modesty and not over-sexualizing themselves. And
it's about like wearing blue jeans versus having to wear very, very formal attire while she's getting nude. And oddly, you don't even see her posing nude. You see her nude photos after the photo shoot.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And then that's when we sort of get what is the first of several record scratch moments. And that's when basically her projection, Mima's that is, actually takes the stage at the Cham performance and addresses the audience, right? So, Ryan, did you, in terms of like the narrative or what exactly was going on there, did you have any ideas as to what that was? Like, do you think like that somehow that was like a Tyler Durden thing where it's actually her? Is it just her imagining things? Where'd you fall on that?
With the ghost taking over?
Yeah.
Dude, I had no idea what the fuck was going on at this point. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I just kind of assumed like that was representing her lost innocence, and it was kind of taking on a life of its own in a way, and the ghost of that. But I didn't really know. I didn't see it taking it to the extreme that we get by the end.
I don't think anybody could.
Looking back on it, so we're gonna have to put a pin in this because I don't want to skip too far ahead. But no, for real, because looking back on it now, and you asking me this, I have to still wonder, like, was she in fact imagining that, or was that the killer replicant that we end up, getting the reveal of at the end in some way, shape, or form? No, it couldn't be, right? Because we see,
it's a little piece of the puzzle. Eddie, what do you think?
Am I allowed to spoil it at this point?
Yes, yeah. So let's go ahead and let's kind of because I think we're close to an hour into this discussion.
Yeah, so the idea is that Rumi has been posing as her, right, and saying that the girl who's going and doing these salacious things is a different Mima. Rumi has been telling this crazed fan what I want you to do. So the crazed fan is at that appearance, and Rumi told that crazed fan, go to this appearance, go to this show, I will be there. And this is his dementia. This is him looking at the stage and seeing her there when she really isn't there.
Okay. Got it.
Well, no.
In my mind.
I was going to say, this is what's interesting because and that's why I brought up this piece specifically, because when I was trying to interpret it, I came up with like at least 3 different ideas that like all could have worked, and that's why I was just wondering if you did. So because on the one hand, I was thinking, to your point, I thought I had more to do with Rumi, because by the time we get to that final sequence where Rumi's chasing Mima, whenever we see Rumi looking at herself, she is Mima. She's the younger Mima, right?
Yeah.
So there could be that sort of illusion, right, where this Mima that's the younger one is actually Rumi, right?
And I mean, all the way up until the hospital at the end, too. So,
yeah. Or I thought that also it could be maybe like this is the moment where her mind snaps and her psychosis really begins, right? Because it's right after the nude photo shoot. So thematically, it would make sense that would break her. And then again, it's just this like record scratch, like, oh, that can't be a thing. That's a figment of her imagination.
Right.
Which is telling us that she's officially sort of starting to go crazy.
And the beautiful thing about this is that this is something that could only really work as well as it does as an anime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Where you can sort of, fuck with the different visuals and time elements and whatnot. And also because I also think, I think what gets overlooked in the viewing experience is the expectations that we as an audience bring into something.
Yes.
I tell Ryan all the time, like famously, like I refuse to watch trailers anymore because a couple years I noticed that there was a direct correlation between my excitement level for a movie and the disappointment that I walked out of the theater with, right?
Have you ever seen Event Horizon?
I have many times, actually,
Okay.
yes.
Have you ever seen Dark City?
I have, also many times.
Okay. Famously, Dark City, the first 2.5 to 5 minutes of it, they just describe for you what the movie's all about. They spoil what the twist is in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
I think that trailers are doing that now, right?
Yeah.
And it really fucking sucks. For it's stupid, but for Butt Boy,
Let's get serious for a minute. Talk about Butt Boy.
I showed it on my live stream, and for the first 10 minutes of it, it's a cold open. You have no idea what's going on. You don't know what the title of the movie is. You have no idea what, and it is shot dead seriously as a neo-noir. Right? And so I'm showing this on my live stream. I tell no one what it is. Imagine watching, for your listeners, From Dusk Till Dawn, and no one told you vampires are involved. Right?
By the way, I would have loved that. I actually maintain that like
for my
Tarantino
wife.
intentionally wanted to like surprise / scare people and came to the conclusion that the only way to do that would be to completely misdirect them for half a film.
Yeah. So my wife is
But then how do you market that?
And she was, yeah. So my wife is a screenwriter, and she was very sheltered growing up. So she never saw From Dusk Till Dawn. She never saw Audition. She never saw a lot of these films. So I was able to just say like, okay, let's watch this. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can just experience it the way that the person who made the film intended it, including Dark City. I cut that entire explanation out from the video. And God damn it, you're so right with the way that these trailers just ruin the film. They ruin the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I loved what Spielberg started doing. I want to say it was with Minority Report, War of the Worlds, like that earlier mid 2000s where he's
Minority
like,
Report, 100%.
Yeah, all my trailers are only going to feature content from the first 20% of the film. Or the first act or whatever it was. Like,
so smart.
hard and fast
God, I wish
rule.
they would go back to that.
Right? So good, dude. So good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and then, you know, Ryan, to your point earlier, you had name dropped Darren Aronofsky and the influence that this film had on him or didn't. I know there's some controversy, so we can talk about that. So, you know, after she does the photo shoot, she goes home and we get the infamous Requiem shot, the shower scene, right, where it's a it's a sort of ceiling shot looking down at her, very symmetric, and then we get the under the water shot where, you know, she's crouched with her knees and then she screams, right? Now, apparently, I'm sure you guys have read this too, and Eddie, maybe you have more insight on this. Apparently, Aronofsky bought the rights to this movie just so he could film that one shot, and I'm really trying to understand. Like, many films have referenced other shots in the past. Like,
so
why couldn't that have just been like a knowing, loving reference? And why did he have to buy the rights?
Well, he wanted to remake this. He wanted to remake this as a live action, and it never worked out. But he did utilize that shot specifically in Requiem for a Dream. And then if you watch Black Swan, there's a lot of this that is referenced in Black Swan. So, I mean,
with a lot of the reflections and a lot of the themes that he did, and even down to like, you know, I think that the Aaron girl that ends up being the detective in this film, you know, is very much like the successful ballerina that Natalie Portman's trying to emulate, and I mean,
exactly, yeah.
That's why it was so weird when I read that he being Aronofsky is trying to say that like Perfect Blue wasn't that much of an influence on the film, because it's like, bro, did you just not know that this film, like, was this subconscious? What the hell? There's a lot of similarities.
Like I said, I think he bought the rights to it because he wanted to remake it, and there were. I wish I could find a good reference for this, but there are people that were working around him back in the day that said he wanted to remake this as a live action. It just never worked out, and that is why he purchased the rights for it.
Interesting. Yeah. And then, so from there, basically the nudes that she took get published, and Me Mania scrambles around town trying to buy up all the copies so that, but obviously that's going to be very much in vain. And, that's when we see again the Mima projection, where he basically has all these posters up on the walls of her, and they all start coming alive and talking to her and thanking him for being the one that's, supposed to protect her. And so, Mima is not the only character that is experiencing some level of psychosis. But the interesting thing is that, and you guys can let me know if I'm right or wrong on this, but I guess by the end of it, it's not that she was strictly a mental projection. It's that she was Rumi, and Rumi was talking to Me Mania. And,
so
and
Rumi was the one that set up Mima's room. And was emailing him and telling him what to do, saying, I'm the real Mima. The Mima that you see on TV is not the real me. And it's funny because this guy also, like, sadly enough, reminds me of the guy that was in love with Bjork and tried to send the bomb in the mail to Bjork.
That's right. I totally forgot about that.
I'm not familiar with that story.
It sucks. You don't need to look
It's basically
into it.
what you think it would be, right?
It ends up the worst way possible, like you could imagine. But I think that might have been a little bit of the inspiration here.
Interesting. Yeah, and I do have one last clip that I want to play of that scene real quick here.
I'll always be with you and I'll never change. Not a bit, but I have a problem. It's that imposter. She keeps getting in my way. I don't know what to do. You're the only one I can depend on.
And so by now we've obviously got a lot going on. I mean, we've introduced the notion of the craved fan as stalker. We've sort of, even though the Rumi reveal hasn't really come to light yet, we've started to set the stage with some of those. We've got the serial killings going on. We've got Cham's success. We've got Mima trying to become an actress, dealing with all of the different emotions at play with all of this stuff. And I mean, again, I think this movie's like 82 minutes long or something. Like, it's crazy how much they jam pack into this shit, dude.
Well, and one thing we haven't really talked about too much as well that's going on top of all of that is, the fact that she's in a TV show and trying to transition from pop star to actress, they keep pulling out. So you'll be in a scene, or at least maybe it just fooled me, but you'll be in a scene with the person, with your actress, and people going on, and then all of a sudden you pull out, and it's just the director and producers watching that happen on the monitor. So what's happening to Mima is running parallel to her character in this detective crime procedural. Yep. So they'll be talking about the rape and this and that. I know there was one scene in particular where they're watching her go crazy or something, and the detective is like, that poor girl doesn't even know she's, losing her mind and this and that. And I'm like, oh, this is all in her head. And then it turns out then it's like cut, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's on the show. And so that, in the context of all the other batshit crazy nonsense that's going on, it's also playing with reality, and so you don't ever really know what's what.
Brilliant way too, because they're referring to her by her real name and her character's name, and she's referring to the characters as the characters' names or by their real name, and confusing that. So this is a very David Lynch inspired situation. Yeah. This is Mulholland Drive, right? This is like,
right.
Who am I? And I think that's the larger part of this is identity, right? Is we're talking about who are you, what's your identity, and how much of it do you actually own as the individual, and how much of your identity is gone when you release it to the public. And then once the public takes it, they can mold it, they can twist it, they can shape it, and they can make Mima's room, manipulate other people, and then use that to destroy you.
And this was before
fucking
fucking social media.
Yeah. But what do I know? I'm a dumb guy who. What do I know? I'm a dumb guy who talks about Butt Boy. So
yeah, right.
Well.
Let's call it. We should call it Monsieur Derriere. I think we should.
Monsieur Derriere.
Yeah, we should juice it up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's actually a really good movie. Anyhow.
Well, no, and it's interesting, Eddie, that you mentioned that the actual manga doesn't have the movie within the movie, because that must be why they introduced it into the film, is just to further play with the whole concept of what's real and what's not, you know?
Well, no,
because
the director saw the manga and he's like, I'm gonna do way more than this with it. He was way more ambitious, and the guy who made the manga was like, dude, your ideas are better than my shit. Go for it. All I want is for you to have a B-tier pop star and a stalker fan that tries to fuck with her, and everything else you can do. That was literally it. That was all the notes that he took from the original writer.
So you're saying that he was not Stephen King. Understood.
No, he's more of a Kubrick than a King.
Yeah, well, and then, you know, and it's right about here. So again, you know, I think we're really starting to see a lot of the lines being blurred. We're not sure what's TV show. We're not sure what's real. We're not sure what's in her head, and vice versa. And even down to the next scene, you know, that's where we start to get the reveals, you know, and we start to see like, oh, wow, this Mima chick's actually crazy fucked up. And, you know, I think where we really get that, if we didn't already, is the scene where the photographer gets murdered, you know, the infamous scene in front of the those old RGB bulbs, which again,
so
unfortunately, all three of us are old enough to remember. But
I love this scene. This is probably the best scene.
It's
in the
amazing
movie for me. The her mounting the photographer, her quote unquote mounting the photographer, and stabbing him to death with this ice pick or screwdriver, while he's watching this slideshow of the nudes that he took of her, is so brilliant. Like, God
Absolutely.
damn it. I don't know. I'm a stupid guy. I don't know about like composition or that kind of stuff. But I just see this shit and I'm like, God damn. It got me.
Well, and the way that they have this sort of, you know, the balletic presentation with, you know, the sort of eerie music and everything else comes down, and you know, like you're just hearing certain sound effects, right? And it's a very artistic scene, but it also hits home. You've got cool visuals, you've got the violence, but then it's also, you know, somewhat justified if such a thing can be. And yeah, like anytime something happens in this film, it's not just that thing happening, right? It's the culmination of several different moments kind of coming together. Those, to your point earlier, those fork in the road decisions, you know, finally starting to come to a head.
All those layers of subtext that are joining together.
Definitely. And it's funny. It's interesting that you brought up Mulholland Drive, because in many ways this is Mulholland Drive. I mean, even down to, you know, after the motivations for, you know, and the fact that it's, you know, this storyline is all in the person's head, and it's motivated by, you know, having to justify the decisions that you made, or try to take failures and convince yourself they're successes.
And the desire
and there's just
for
so many of those
fame
similar
and
themes.
embodying that desire for fame as a separate person from yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of because Mulholland Drive came out somewhere between 99 and 01, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, kind of right on the heels of each other, but obviously too close. Also, obviously too close to be inspired by someone. I doubt very much David Lynch reads anime.
No,
I feel very confident in saying that.
Lynch had nothing to do with this. Don't worry about that.
And then I know it took him several years to find the funding, because Mulholland Drive was a failed TV show, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So just kind of interesting to see the parallels there. Kind of like when Volcano and Dante's Peak came out at the same time. Very similar.
Yeah.
And so that's when you know, again, sort of we're getting more and more reveals here, and we see Mima wake up in bed after the murder, and she has no recollection of the murder, and that's where, you know, we get the reveal that it's, oh, okay, this woman has multiple personalities, and the lead actress that was the quote-unquote lead actress on the detective show is actually a real life either detective or doctor who's trying to, you know, who's working the case to understand what happened. And it's also really interesting where I thought this was an interesting decision, and Eddie, I'm sure you have an opinion on it. Ryan, I'd like to see yours as well. And that's, so, you know, we get this whole reveal, and then the show is over. They're done filming. They have the wrap party, and Mima's left alone, and, Me-Mania, who is her, quote unquote self-appointed protector, is, going to kill her, to, sort of exercise the evil version of it, right? Because, she's supposed to be pure. And then when the time comes, he actually sexually assaults her. And then instead of, just killing her or whatever, like, he's going to try to rape her too. So it's like, that feels like there's a very pointed point being made.
Not only rape her, like, so clearly, like, Rumi has been sending emails to this guy, and that's why he's saying the other version of you is messaging me and telling me that you're not really you, right?
Yeah.
And then not only going to kill her and rape her, but on the stage where she filmed her first scene of being raped in the strip club, right? And that culmination, like that perfect, like, end to end, where he has become the thing that he hates and detests the most, which is the character in that movie that ruined or tarnished his idea of what she was, right? And but in this instance, though, she finally starts, like, she takes some agency and fucks him up. Which I goddamn love.
Finally.
So that's my take.
Yeah. Ryan, anything to add to that?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. I think that for me, I think that what the film was trying to do is it was trying to remind you that this guy is not a hero, right? Because most of the film, it's like, again, the self-appointed protector of her image, you're protecting me, blah, 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 this and that. And I think it's the film's way of being like, whoa, guys, don't forget, this is an insane, mentally disturbed stalker. This is not a good guy. He's not the protector that he wants to be. At the end of the day, when push comes to shove, he's just as lascivious and just as evil as any of these other guys, and he's just another guy, right?
Well, we get shots of him at his computer station, with all the stalker images of her all over the walls. And I mean, even the way he's drawn, again, going back to my original point with the, drool coming out of his mouth and him kind of hunched over. He looks like a villain from start to finish.
Well, I mean, sure, but that could also be like a mask thing, right? Like, he's the disfigured guy that we at first think is going to be evil.
I guess.
But, look, he's actually good, right? Like, under the skin and all these things that kind of play with that character.
But he's yet another representative of the male gaze. So you have the screenwriter who writes the female as being like, okay, I'm using you to advance the story by raping you in the story. You've got the photographer who's like, okay, well, I mean, we care about you as a person, but let's see your pussy. And then all of those people get brutally, markedly, their eyes gouged out, like literally a repudiation and destruction of the male gaze. And then finally, this guy who tries to rape her just gets destroyed. Like, it's so funny because we see this this anime from the perspective of the male gaze, and it's literally objectifying her and using her as an object for the furthering of the plot without any concern for her agency, when in reality, this whole movie has been about her agency and about who she is and who she is trying to be.
So,
and finally, this last stalker is destroyed.
Well, let's talk about that, Eddie. Because
until we get to the last stalker.
Speaking of her agency, quite literally her agency. Let's segue into the last scene because I'm interested in your take on this because I'm going down this road with you, and I really love your stance on this. Everything you say is substantiated. But then my question to you is: then how does the Rumi twist go in with this, in the sense of if this whole thing is held against the reflection of the male gaze and how that is controlling this woman and all of that, then it turns it on its ear, and now we find out a woman has been behind a lot of these things and puppeteering the attacks on these men.
I'll let you guys describe what's happening, and then I'll give you my theory on it. And
let me
put it into two
break it down
words
real quick,
which is internalized misogyny.
Okay. Go ahead. Jason, take it away.
Right. Yeah, so basically, it's the final scene. It's the craziest of a crazy film. and Rumi basically finds Mima, takes her home, except it's not home, it's actually her place. Mima goes to call Todokoro, and he's dead right next to Mania. So obviously someone has killed him in the rap party where he died.
But the fish are alive. And the fish are alive. That's what she notices first, and she's like, fuck, something's wrong.
Yeah, wait.
Interesting. I missed that detail. That's a good one, though. I'm glad you pointed
She's
that out.
She's a better homemaker than Mima, right?
More attentive.
Yeah. And that's when basically Mima sees herself in this new red dress, except it's not her in this sort of tall mirror. It's Rumi, who is actually, rather has squeezed herself into a dress that's too small. I'll save the analysis for a minute. But basically what happens is she sort of talks about being the sort of real, pure Rumi, and then she ends up sort of chasing her through the streets, chasing after Mima, who's just trying to escape. There's the reveal that, she's been reading the diary entries like we mentioned. Well, she hasn't been writing them physically. She's been feeding to Mania the words that she should write as the quote-unquote real Mima. They take chase through the city, where again we sort of go back and forth between seeing a very young, attractive Mima in this pretty red dress versus Rumi in the same red dress, very much squeezed in. And at one point they run into an alley. Mima's being backed into it, and she grabs Rumi's wig and throws it in the middle of the street, which destroys the illusion for Rumi and sends her into a sort of mania where she goes to get the wig, but it's on the other side of like a shattered window. So when she reaches over to get it, again, because she's so desperate to live into this fantasy, she basically like gores her entire stomach open and then like wanders off into the middle of the street. We do get another awesome shot where she's about to get hit by a truck. And when, we see her perspective looking at the headlights, and to her, they look like stage lights. Yep. And, she puts her hand in the air like this sort of grand finale, very much encapsulating the warped mentality that Rumi is in. But Mima is able to run out, push her aside, save her. And, we get a final sequence of Mima visiting Rumi in a mental hospital. And again, in keeping with the whole taking agency, we'll describe that last shot here in a moment. But Eddie, with that out of the way, give us your interpretation, my man.
Okay, so you've got the weird, like Peter Pan, her floating and flitting about the rooftops, trying to chase Rumi, by the way. And then you've also got the narcissist, right? Which is her leaning over the broken window and seeing her reflection in all of the little pieces of the glass from the window.
I loved that.
When she gores herself. It's so beautiful. And then, like you said, and I love the way that you pointed that out, which is like, earlier, there was a Post-it note that was posted in the elevator that Mima saw, which was there was a hit and run that happened in front of her building. And now we see Rumi is about to get hit and run potentially, but staring at the headlights of this semi that's bearing down on her, this inevitability. And she just sees it as stage lights. It's like, now I've hit my moment. Now I'm the celebrity, right?
Yeah.
Just my notes on what you just summarized. So what I think it is for me, what I took from it is you've got two different ideals of female that are comparing, contrasting, and arguing with each other. And as a white male, I'm the perfect person to get into this with other white males.
Right. I thought about that.
Three white males all know exactly what's going on. We're going to give you right now.
I thought about that.
We are going
earlier.
to mansplain the shit out of some things right now. Stand by.
No, you know what? I'll tell you right now. It's not about mansplaining. It's about trying.
No, it's
and
analysis.
If you have female listeners, please weigh in and tell me 323 for the axe. That's my phone number. Just give me a call. I'll talk to you. Really. No, what I see is you've got this juxtaposition of the two different ideals. Like there's a woman who's trying to go out and do her own thing, right? And then the other woman, Rumi, is holding her down in it a little bit, but they both envy each other, right? And I think that it's a toxic femininity almost. It's an internalized misogyny where it's like, you know what? Mima, you were supposed to be this clean, pure thing that I was curating and I was in control of. And I wanted you to go this one direction. You wanted to go your own direction. And you know what? You fucked up. You made mistakes, maybe, potentially. And you did these rape scenes and nude photography. But you know what? That's actually really about you finding you. Like, if that's what you're trying to do, go for it. Who am I to control you and do this? And then she uses that. She harnesses that to weaponize masculinity against her and to try to get this fucking crazy stalker piece of shit to attack her. Like to take the worst parts of masculinity and turn it against her. Then you've got the narcissist, which, God damn it, I love that scene. Which is like, it's not even about you in the end. You know what? It's all actually really about me. Your celebrity, your being a star, is really what I can make you and what I can get from you. And that poisoned her mind to the point of destruction. Like she was going to stand in front of a fucking car and get ran over. She was insane as hell, and she ends up where she ends up. Anyhow, that's as much as I've got off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's all really strong. And I think that, too, in addition to being specifically gender targeted, I do think that there's a lot of commentary about fame. And specifically about the trappings and the allure and both, the light and dark of it, the romantic appeal, but also, very much it's almost a cautionary tale, the same as like any sort of drug story that you hear, right? It's like it always starts off, everything's super fun and everything's great, and then it's just a series of downward spiral decisions that ultimately end up with us being at bottom and losing everything, and then how do we respond by that to that rather?
Yeah,
it's funny.
It's a good point.
It's funny you bring that up. I watched Get Back, the documentary about the Beatles, and this movie back to back, and it was like a total mindfuck because it put the whole thing in all out of perspective. With Brian Epstein dying and the Beatles going apart, and then everyone going off on their solo careers, and Paul McCartney got naked in the magazine that one time. That's cool. No, not really, but still, it was definitely a weird contrast of pop celebrity and pop culture, and then watching this, and the dark side of that is like, oh shit, okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely. But going back to that though, it's just I think that the Rumi character is basically just showing that like fame fucked this woman up, or the pursuit of fame. I think that it's very much. I think that her arc and her trajectory and her character is very much the child starlet mom, basically, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like had huge dreams of being a successful actress when they were younger. They didn't pan out, but they're just going to devote all of their resources to living vicariously through their child.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting. Like, it's such a bizarre concept, right? Like, I get the idea that like the three of us like could literally don't understand why someone could do that, right? Like, why would you get pleasure out of watching someone else be the thing that you couldn't become? Like, to me, when I think about that, like that would only reinforce my own failures, right? To see my kids succeed in a way that I didn't, or something like that. And not in a healthy way, not in like, I'm going to set you up for success in the ways that I wasn't, but like, hey, I am lacking and I need you to do so that I can live through you to get that which I lack. That's bizarre to me.
Again, that's also troubling because like you're saying, do you push your kid to succeed because of your failures? Or like, is seeing your kid succeed a mark of like they can do better than you? I mean, that's the American dream, right? Like that should be your goal. But yeah, I mean,
well, but you see both of those, right? Because you also see, you do like I think the default expectation and the default is you have parents that are supportive of their kids and do those things. But it's also not uncommon, even those same people that support their kids, there may be an element of jealousy, right? Like you hear about how often when young men come of age and there's that whole thing with, fathers and where do you draw that line and, you're not taking care of me anymore and blah, blah, blah. Like there's that whole adjustment that comes along with, with that whole relationship. And so I think that, there's a part of that comes here too with just this whole, Mima and Rumi dynamic.
I could see that. I could totally see that.
Yeah. And then we, of course, get the final sequence. And Eddie, I think that if anything, this is going to come around and sort of wrap things up to your point, which is that ultimately it's a tale of, at the end of the day, her taking agency over herself and her body and her career and just her in totality, right? And we get the final scene where she goes and she sees Rumi, who, by the way, at this point, Mima's okay, right? Like she came out of this, like she got fucked up there for a minute. But the last scene tells us that Mima's going to be okay.
Sort of.
Well, okay. Maybe not, right?
I mean,
but in terms of like, she's not actively in a state of psychosis the way that she was through most of this movie.
No, she's at least accepted that she is a duality.
Well, and then there's the whole thing because, like, basically the nurses are talking shit about her as she's leaving, and they're like, hey, isn't that girl? Oh, yeah, that's the failed actress. Oh, wow, like, I didn't even know she was here. Maybe she's just, like, a figment of our imagination. And she kind of looks at herself in the mirror, and she's like, no, I'm real, And that's the very last line of dialogue we hear. And I think if you just, like, if you think of that in terms of a screenplay, right, in terms of, like, a page and a last line of dialogue, I think it's telling us that, like, again, she's going to be okay. She's managed to resolve this, but it sounds like maybe you might think otherwise.
So, you kind of mistranslated a little bit. What the nurses are actually saying is, hey, there's her, that's that actress. That can't be her. Why would she be here? Right? It's a little bit like she's big time for being at that location. And then they're like, no, that's clearly not her. Then she gets into the car, and when she gets into the car, she can drop the veneer of being the normal person and be like, I know who I am. Look into the rear view, and then we kick into the baller ass. One of my fucking favorite things with anime is how you have to end it with the, like, 80s, like, metal, like, you know what I mean?
And the songs at the beginning and the end all have to be like completely different tones and shit, 100%. Right? Like one is hardcore metal and the other is like a lovey-dovey ballad.
Yeah, you've got the lovey-dovey ballad and then you've got Motley Crue. Like I fucking love it. So, no, and I think that's like she still is a duality, right? Like she has to go be the demure, like restrained, hidden person when she's in public, and then she goes and she's like, no, I'm the fucking celebrity. I fucking know who I am. And it is an acceptance of that duality, though, I think.
Awesome. Well, that is Perfect Blue, guys. This was a really, really interesting film, and I'm looking at the time, and I think that we probably talked for just about as long as we watched this film. Hey, always a good time. So we're going to go ahead, Eddie. This is your first time on our show. We like to finish up with a little feature called 3 Adjectives. I'm going to have Ryan start. The thing about being at the end of 3 Adjectives is sometimes the people up top can steal your adjectives. But you know what? We're going to roll the dice. So Ryan, why don't you kick us off? What you got?
My first one is one of those cheater hyphenated things. I hyphenated terrifyingly beautiful. This is a beautiful film, but not in a beautiful way. So definitely, sets you back a little bit and makes you feel uneasy, but in a beautiful, wonderful way. The next one is surreal. It felt like a fever dream watching this thing. I never really was sure what was going on, but I was along for the ride. I loved every minute of it. And my last one is appetizer, because this just made me want to watch more anime. And I'm really mad at myself for not having gone down this road as much as I should have. I've seen some of the staples, but man, damn it, I love this podcast for getting me to watch some of these. I mean, that's the whole reason we started this, right, Jason? This is like an excuse to watch these films. I mean, you and I put this list together ourselves so that we could have an excuse to finally, once and for all, force ourselves to watch these things. So this was a fantastic
Eddie,
experience.
selfishly, a lot of these films are those films that like Ryan and I would always have on like our Netflix queues. Nice. Like, I don't know, by the way, did you get like Netflix back in the day when it was like DVD red envelope Netflix?
Yep. I still have one.
Did you also have like all your 500 movies? Like, and you had to like delete 5 to add 5 more?
I've actually got a DVD that's still in the red envelope. right now. It's a Korean miniseries called Time Between Dog and Wolf.
Never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's very good. Close. My wife brought it to our relationship, and I don't know. One of those things I love.
I'll do you one better. I actually have an active Red Envelope DVD Netflix subscription.
Here we go.
Here comes
hipster Jason coming out.
Yep. Supporting the physical media as I do. Look, all I'm saying, man, is there's a documentary, Los Angeles Plays Itself, and you can't get it anywhere. Except, you can. You can get it on dvd.netflix.com. It's awesome. I'm telling you, man, you get all these movies like Papillon. I've seen so many great movies that I literally could not find anywhere else. And, it's awesome. So the other thing, though, I will say it's not the only place that you can get it. The other place that you can get it, Ryan, where do you think I'm going to say right now? What's my other beloved platform?
The library.
Canopy. Yes, my beloved Canopy. Eddie, are you familiar with Canopy?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, see, not enough people are, and it's a travesty. So I will take this opportunity once again to plug Canopy. It's Kanopy, and basically this is an online streaming service that you get access to with your library card. Any library card in U.S. will work. And if you don't have one, like I didn't, you can go online and get one in literally 30 seconds, and they'll give you a digital number that you just link to your Canopy account.
Okay.
And then I think you get like 10 free movies a month, and they have like all the films we watch on here, dude. Like a ton of Criterion. They have a ton of A24. You can go watch Under the Skin. You can watch Wages of Fear. You can watch Room, the Brie Larson movie that she won Best Actress for. And you can see little-known documentaries like Los Angeles Plays Itself from 2003. Nice. So, again, dude, if you don't have a library card, get one. Go to Canopy.com. And they even have, like, smart TV platforms and stuff. You just pull it up right there on your Samsung and watch it right there. It's awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, Ryan, did we get to all three of yours, or do you owe us one more adjective?
Yep. Nope, that was it. I had terrifyingly beautiful. I had surreal. I had appetizer. Carry on.
Yes, appetizer. Mr. Eddie, you're up. Three adjectives. What you got?
Yeah, so I have half of your hyphenate. I have beautiful, I have hideous, and I have introspective for my three adjectives. I think because it's really it does showcase this beauty of the idealized version. It's old school, like Hitchcock, kind of the id, the superego, and the ego. Going on here. So you've got the beauty and you've got the hideousness of human nature, but I think the introspective parts of it are the more interesting parts of it for me, which is like the analysis of like who are we really, what motivates us to do what we do, and why, and how do we come out of that in the end, right? Thankfully for Mima, she came out of it okay. Like she had a nice sports car, she had some shades, and she got to throw on some 80s power ballad when she drove the fuck away from the nut house with her girl Rumi getting shock treatment. So
I don't know if you guys ever listened to X Japan, but that reminded me of X Japan.
Yeah.
I love that band so much.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, so for my three adjectives, the first I have is tight. The one thing, we talk all about it's tight, yo. It's tight.
It's an hour and 21 minutes tight. It's a tight script.
Yeah, no, but I mean, just, and Ryan, we've talked about this on the show before, just when it comes to, pacing and the way that films move.
Right.
It's something that a lot of people don't talk about that we try to call more attention to. And yeah, I mean, this film never lets you go, right? It keeps it choppy, and that also, just that tightness plays into the whole notion of not really knowing what's going on. And then from there, not only is it tight, the thing that most surprised me about this film is how focused it is. A film like this that's just so all over the place, and you're jumping through different times and personalities and what's real and what's not. I mean, this film should be confusing. It should be a film where it's kind of easy to get lost. And at no point did I feel lost. If I ever felt lost, it was just for a brief moment, and it was because I was supposed to, because the director was setting that up, because he led me to believe we were on a set, and now all of a sudden we're not. So the fact that you could tell this type of story and be hugely sprawling and yet still keep it as focused as it is and have that direct through line that you never lose sight of was very, very impressive to me. And the third and final, it's a little more on the nose, is just hallucinogenic, you know. Ryan, you called it, I think, a Robitussin fever dream, and it definitely is. This is mixing NyQuil and DayQuil and then staying up for 7 days. You don't know what's going on. You're being pulled this way and that way. And just when you think you know what's going on, you don't. But the fact that it does all of this and does it in a way that never leaves you frustrated and it never leaves you... If it leaves you guessing, it's because it wants to leave you guessing. You know, it's never because you're lost. And that could just happen so easily in a film like this. And I think that's, just as much as anything else, that very much impressed me. So with our 3 adjectives out of the way, we're going to go ahead and do our formal ratings. Now, Eddie, I'm going to let you kick this off. And I have mentioned to you, which also a good time to remind listeners, we may have some newer listeners that have wondered for the last several episodes why Ryan gives a grade rating and I give a star rating. Eddie, I'll let you know that when we first started this thing, I kept pushing Ryan for star ratings. And every single time I would ask him for a star rating, he would give me a grade rating very stubbornly. And so after a few episodes, we just leaned into it. So now anybody gets to give whatever rating they want. And with that being said, Eddie, give us your formal rating, whatever that looks like for you.
Okay, so for me, it's going to be 1 out of 5 with, and we'll count half points, axes. And I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 axes. It's
nice.
It's beautiful. It's really well constructed. It's very tight. I don't know if I can give it a perfect rating, because there are some points of it that like you said were maybe a little bit more obtuse than they needed to be. And the voice acting is phenomenal. Like, whether you do the English or the Japanese dub and do subs or dubs, that's on you. But either way, it's very, very well done. And as far as storytelling goes, though, I think it's up there in one of the highest categories for me. So yeah, I'd say 4.5 out of 5 axes.
Nice. Awesome. Ryan, how about you?
I'm giving this one an A- for all the reasons that he just said. I'm on board with every single one of those things. No notes. That is, I think it's just very well constructed. It's not perfect. It's not the best version of this thing, but damn it, is it close. And it was super enjoyable. And it's an hour and 21 minutes. I mean, they take you for a fucking ride for an hour and 21 minutes. Like this, it's not bloated. There is no fat. This is Wagyu beef, premium content. Every bite is edible, goes down smooth.
Absolutely. I'll actually push back on you a little bit and say that I think that this is the perfect version of this
story.
Whoa!
So once again, I'm going to be way too generous and give Perfect Blue 5 stars out of 5 because, God damn it, Ryan, as I've told you, it's all about the experience, right?
Okay.
And Eddie, that's kind of what I've come down to, right? Because so in those first few episodes, I feel like I was being really harsh, right? And even my wife was like, "Oh, you've been kind of hard on these films." And then I was like, you know what? We're going to dissect these films, and certain things are going to come up, and how do I compare a Dead Alive to a Harakiri, right? Like some artistic Criterion film from 1946. Like, how can I compare that to Gremlins or Dead Alive, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously the Criterion movie is going to be the better film and like the more deserving of respect when viewed through a certain lens. But like, is that to take away from Dead Alive? Are you telling me that if I give 5 stars to Harakiri, that means that Dead Alive has to be 4.5? No, bullshit. Dead Alive is as good as a version of that type of movie as you're going to find. Yeah. It is the best version of that story, and ergo is every bit deserving of 5 stars. So that's kind of where I've come to. It's like, what is my experience, dude? To your guys' point, I was in this every step of the way. I didn't want anybody bothering me. I was locked in. I was even kind of disappointed that I had to take my notes because especially, I don't know about you guys, but like I watched the Japanese version. So I had to read, and sometimes when, you've got the subtitles and you're taking detailed notes, like there, I have to pause it, and I hated having to stop the experience just to take down these notes, and I wanted to get right back to it. So, again, the fact that a film can have that effect on me, 5-star experience for old Jason here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I get what you're saying. The idea is, how successful is it in doing what it's trying to do, right? Dead Alive is 100% successful in what it's trying to do. So yeah, totally. I get you.
Absolutely. So, yeah, this has been a really great conversation. Eddie, I really appreciate you coming and joining us here, man. You brought some really, really fire observations to this, and I really appreciate, all the different observations, and it's been a fun time talking about this with you. Once again, why don't you just go ahead and remind people where they can find you?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to hear me talk about Butt Boy, or we did an episode
and who
on
doesn't?
Bordello
You
with
absolutely
Blood.
Do.
Crank 2. All sorts of really good movies. You can go to bloodybits.com and you can take a listen to that podcast. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/bloodybits, where you can get access to the Blood Bank, which will grant you access to over 3,000 rare and obscure horror and grindhouse films with our streaming server that we have.
Wow.
Lots of crazy stuff on there. And if you want to, just talk to me, 323 the axe. I'll talk to you. If you're lonely, if you need someone to talk to, you can go to the Axe's room. You don't need to go to talk to Rumi in Mima's room.
Love it.
Awesome. I will try not to take advantage and leave you random voicemails at 3 a.m.
It's fine.
Cool, man. And then are you on Twitter, Instagram, any of those things?
Yeah. Twitter, just look up Eddie the Axe. Anywhere there's social media, at Eddie the Axe, that's me.
Yeah, probably not going to be too many Eddie the Axes out there. So, and if so, just listen for a second, and if you hear a buttery smooth voice getting you a little wet or a little hard, depending on which way you go, that's probably him.
Well, thank you.
There he is.
You're too kind.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, and then as far as we're concerned, we are Esoterica Cinema. You know this. You can find us on Twitter as well as Instagram. We've also got a kick-ass website, esotericacinema.com. We've got a web player on there, some fun little features. And then we, of course, have the master list that we choose all of our films from. You can go there. You can download that list for free. See the 200 films that we have on there, of which we're only going to select 20 in a given season. So, for season 3, we are looking to get some more films on there. And because of that, we do encourage you to reach out to us, esotericacinema@gmail.com, or on any of the socials. Also, you can find the Ryan Siebold or myself, Jason Aberrant, on those platforms as well. With that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and select our next film. So, Eddie, I do believe that you have some sort of convention you're going to use to get us that number, yeah?
Yes, sir. I've got my Dungeons & Dragons dice.
Excellent. You're such a nerd. You fit in so well here.
Yep. So I'm going to roll a D200, which is not a real dice. I've finagled a D100 with a D4. So we'll figure out what you're going to watch next. And ready, ladies and gentlemen, it is 30.
30. Okay.
30.
Early up there. All right. I feel like we've had a couple around here. Oh, that's why it was. Yeah, because we had 26 come up recently for Cash. And then at the very start of the season, we had 32 for Dead Alive. So 30. Very interesting film. This one's been on my list forever. Ryan, I know it's been on your list. We are going to be looking at Spike Lee's Crooklyn.
Ooh.
You ever seen that one, Eddie?
Yes, I have. It's a wonderful movie.
Excellent. And I have actually never seen this film. Ryan, have you seen this one?
I have not
before?
either. No. We're going back to 1994. Spike Lee's vibrant, semi-autobiographical portrait of a school teacher, her stubborn jazz musician husband, and their 5 kids living in Brooklyn in 1973. I think this was my ad, actually, to the list. So I'm really, really stoked to see this. I've seen the Spike Lee staples. I do feel like this is Spike Lee staple adjacent. If you will.
It's like second tier if it's not like one
correct.
and a half tier.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X and Mo Better Blues, and then you got Crooklyn, I think, right underneath that. So as I'm going down the list, I hit an abrupt stop on the Spike Lee joints, and I needed to get back to it. So here we are, Crooklyn. Pretty excited.
Nice. Yeah, and he's one of those filmmakers. He's just made so many movies that I think everybody probably, has more than one handful of Spike Lee movies that they need to see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, dude. And it's Delroy Lindo. Who doesn't love Delroy Lindo? And you know what I mean? Like, that guy's just lovable and everything. Love that guy.
Hell yeah. He's great. So, yeah. So, and again, I still maintain that we're the only podcast where you're going to go from Perfect Blue one week to Crooklyn the next. Find me another. Go ahead. Point them out. esotericacinema@gmail.com. Let me know.
It has been an esoteric season. That's for sure. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Definitely.
He did remake Old Boy, so it makes sense.
Touche.
Yeah,
good
he
call.
did. Yeah, I refuse to watch that movie because I have major issues with just the fact that he made it, and we're gonna save that conversation for another episode.
Maybe next episode.
Maybe it'll come up next episode. Yes.
Yeah.
So once again, Eddie, had a great time here talking Perfect Blue with you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hopefully we will
had a great time.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate the insight you brought to us. And I'm sure that we will be seeing you around again sometime in the not too distant future.
Of course.
And for everyone else, we will see you next week on another episode of Esoterica Cinema.
I can't believe my big presentation to the board is tomorrow, and I still have all this work to do.
Wow, no kidding. Have you ever tried Perfect Blue?
Perfect Blue? What's that?
They're pep pills. My sister's an actress and she swears by them. Here, she gave me some earlier. You can have them.
Thanks. I'll take any help I can get right now.
No problem. I'll leave you to it and come check on you in an hour. Hey, Susan, how's it going?
Oh man, everything's fantastic! I've got so much energy. Plus, I realized that since the Illuminati control the puppet strings of corporate influence, my presentation is entirely irrelevant! So now, I'm refocusing my efforts towards an algorithm that will finally answer why cannibalism is so unfairly maligned in this country!
Huh. Hey, I think I'm gonna go phone my sister real quick. Just don't go anywhere.
Couldn't if I tried! My legs stopped working minutes ago.
You're actually pacing the room as we speak. Very quickly.
Those are hummingbird legs! Did you know I have hummingbird legs now?
Right. I'm gonna go make that call now. Excuse me.
Take your time, Timbo!
Susan, I just got off the phone. Something is seriously wrong with those Susan?
Timbo! Timbo, is that you?
Well, of course it's me. Where are you?
Timbo, you're not gonna believe this, but I've ascended beyond my physical form!
Look, apparently there was a mix-up between my sister's pills and Gary Busey's medication.
Gary Busey? Who's that?
Never mind that. Look, I'm gonna go get a doctor, okay? Just please don't go anywhere.
Kind of hard when I'm already everywhere at once, Timbo!
What was this even a commercial for again?
Perfect Blue Pet Pills. Available at Walgreens and everywhere drugs are sold.